Welcome back to today's final splash of paint, where it's time for us to rejoin professional SAA artist Ince as he puts the final finishing touches to today's dramatic Dartmoor painting.
Thank you, Matthew. Earlier in the programme, I painted the sky on this little oil sketch. I've pre-mixed a few earthy, olivey greens, and what I normally do is go for the speed. I go for the mid-tone. So I don't go for the darkest colours and the lightest. We look for one in the middle and start sort of blocking in the shape that the land creates against the sky, up to the peak there and across and down. So just establishing the skyline and the line of the hills. I think that wants to be a little bit straighter. Down to there. Pick up a bit more paint and just look at the shape and bring that up, down, up again, rises a little further. Continue that line down. So now I've got the sky in, I can just cut across the sky. That comes off into the distance there. So it's quite dark over this side, so I'll just block that in there, block this in down this way. And then that comes up and meets this hill here. So I'm still working in a mid-tone, so working in the mid-tone, then you can just go back in and we'll put in some shadows, some lights and darks. So that's right, so dark, bit of raw umber, cobalt blue and yellow ochre, and that gives us a dark olivey colour. Starting on this side, there's some, oh, I'm not sure what it is, it's sort of gorse bushes and things. So this little bit here, the beauty of a filbert brush is its shape. I said earlier it's a cross between a flat and a round, but if you pull the brush through, turn it over 180 degrees and pull it through again, you get a very sharp, chisely edge, which allows you then to put in a nice line, a linear stroke that you can just pull through. This hill on this side, on the left hand side, is darker, so we can just go back with that colour and darken this side up. Again, I'm trying to follow the contours a bit to describe the shape of the hill. Over on the right hand side, I want to make it slightly darker still. I want to create this slope. So just pulling it round, down there, out of the edge of the painting. A little bit lighter now, so take a little bit of kitchen roll, wipe off the excess paint. At no point have I actually washed the brush. On the brushes, I've got these brushes on the go. This one just wiped it, so it's nice and easy to just pick up some colour, go into the edge here, some white to lighten that. Just have a look and see what I'm aiming for. Right, and with this colour, again, same process, pull the brush through, turn it over, pull it through again, nice sharp edge, and then draw in with the edge of that brush some of these lighter happenings. This hill comes along and then down. There's some sunlight catching on this side, so we'll just put those marks in. So turn the brush. Turn the brush. If you want to use the flat, you just turn it over. If you want the edge, just turn it on edge. A really versatile brush. You're not going to put too much detail in or worry too much about it. It's an oil sketch, but it will allow you in the back in the studio with the aid of the photograph, the oil sketch, presuming you've been out actually in the wilds and done this, You can then go back to your studio or home and produce a nice sort of painting that means a lot to you. You can't beat getting out in the elements and battling and producing a sketch. Means far more than taking a photograph. So a little bit more yellow, I think, lemon yellow into that. I want a slightly brighter green, so that's better. So again, I'm just stroking the paint on using directional strokes to follow the line of the hill. If you find that you've missed a little bit, then we can just go back. I'll use a slightly smaller brush, a number 2 filbert this time. Go back, pick up some of the dark pigment and put that back in. Bring the line of the land to there. A few bits and pieces, a few darker areas in this little bit, just to create a bit of texture. Don't want blobs, so I'll just touch it, just sort of stippling really, a little bit of stippling action. Back to the brighter colour paint. Let's block in all the way along. There we go. And again, want some variation in colour here. So with the combination of the 2 brushes, we can pick up some paint and put in some texture in this foreground. Like this sort of quite grassland that's quite clumpy and got these very short, low gorse bushes. So using the side of the brush, the flat of the area of the brush, we can just touch that onto there, creating some texture and creating little sort of strokes, almost like individual grass blades. On the edge of the land there's some dead bracken, I think it is, so it's a sort of a nice reddy brown. So I'm using alizarin crimson, raw umber and some raw sienna. Believe it or not, it's a very similar colour to burnt sienna. So just going along, this sort of depicts the edge between the foreground land and the middle distant land and the distant landscape. So we can use this going along the edge. There we go. So just bringing a few bits along. And just the final touch, stab the brush into the paint there so that it separates the bristles, and I've got paint. I'll just touch it back in so that you've now got some paint on the tips of the bristles, and just here and there I'll just put the suggestion of some gorse, so about 1/3 of the way in, but not sort of down too low so that it takes you out of the picture. I think that's about it. Hope you've enjoyed watching, and I'll see you next time.
Great atmospheric painting there, Murray. Really captures the dramatic backdrop of Dartmoor. Well, folks, I hope that today's project has inspired you to try using oils and have a go at creating your own stunning atmospheric landscapes, wherever your artistic ability. Well, folks, I'm afraid we're nearly at the end of today's programme. But before we go, we've just got time to pull a question out of the Splash Your Paint post bag. How do I get a good job of a representation of frost in my watercolour paintings? Each time I try to do this, it looks more like snow. I'm trying to paint holly in the early morning. Can you help? Well, I've prepared this strange looking object, and this is basically a dark background, and I've sketched in a single holly leaf, and I've used masking fluid and the masking fluid brushes to go around the edge. Now, masking fluid, of course, is the liquid latex solution. You've got to be careful with this. it can ruin brushes, so do it quickly. A good tip is to put a little bit of soap on your brush before you actually paint it on the paper. And then if I rub that away, I've done a bit of a speckly edge to this, and that is the main secret for this really. Frost is very speckly and spiky on the edge, and we're going to paint this in a couple of steps. So a size 6 brush first of all, and a nice dark holly green, which we can mix from natural grey, Viridian hue, which is a nice dark green, and some lemon yellow. Now, as soon as lemon yellow goes into the colour, it kind of changes things. It starts to look more like a dark, vivid green. Put a bit more grey to darken if you need to. Now, I'm going to use this nice dark green, as you can see there, good holly colour. I'm going to go in and I'm going to paint up to the berries, which I'll just leave as white in this picture. And I'm leaving an edge, because the frost gathers on the edge of the holly leaf. So I'm leaving a good white edge for this, but still basically following the shape of the actual holly leaf. Clean brush, wipe it over tissue, and then just spend a few moments going around the edge and blend away as you do this. Keep going, water, until it almost completely disappears to the white on the end. And that's where the frost actually gathers. Now this is obviously a close-up of frost. If you was painting something like a frosty tree, that's very different. Just use a pale natural grey for this and work over the top of the tree. Because if you look at frosty trees, you see how the frost almost turns into the leaves, if you like, of the tree. And it completely smothers the tree. Very effective things to paint, but frosty paintings are almost monochrome, lots and lots of shades of grey. So you can see how that's all nicely blended in, leaving the white edge. Then using a craft knife or a sharp knife, you can go up the centre and you can scrape out the markings of the holly leaf. Of course, you're going to do that while the paint's damp. It looks more like a leaf at that point. And then right into the edge, you can actually scrape the spiky roughness of the frost. And as soon as you do this, this is when you start to see the frost, because some frost really does get quite broad. It's well worth putting your time into that. Don't be afraid to rip the paper. Use the point of the knife, otherwise there's no point using it. And that does give quite a nice effect of a frosty leaf. Other things you could bring into this if you wanted to, optional things, is a bit of opaque white or a gouache white. Iridescent medium, which I quite often keep in my paint sets. If I can get the lid off. Good job at childproof, isn't it? We get the water on the brush and pick up quite a lot of iridescent medium. This is a really fine silver glitter for watercolours, and it wouldn't go over this because it's too wet, but if I put it over the top of this green area, extremely thick, you can see just how it gives a very nice sparkle. So a few little bits just over the edge of this leaf will, if you like the effect, and it is optional, you don't have to use it, but it's there because it just gives that nice little bit of a frosty shimmer. And it's not like glitter, it's not a tacky sparkle, it's very, very fine, and it's the kind of thing that you just catch as you walk past the picture on the wall. Okay, that's all we've got time for, folks, today, but remember, all artistic advice and inspiration you need is just a click away. Visit the SAA website at saa.co.uk for more information and resources available for support on your creative journey. Join us next time when Peter Woolley gets to grips with grey, Fraser Scarf demonstrates how to add depth and texture, and we clean up with Jeremy Ford and take a trip down the farm with Marilyn Alice to capture a colourful rooster. See you very soon for another vibrant edition of A Splash of Paint.
Whether you're a beginner, improver or professional, discover more about the full range of SAA membership benefits available to bring a bigger splash of paint into your life. Visit www.saa.co.uk for details.